We began today with a starter of having you make a diagram to show the possible outcomes when you toss two coins, and this was really review because we did this before and it was in chapter 2, I believe. When you toss the first coin, it can be heads or tails. When I toss my second coin, for the first coin's heads, my second coin can be heads or tails. And if my first coin is tails, my second coin can be heads or tails. So when I toss two coins, I get four possible outcomes: heads with heads with tails with heads, or tails with tails. So if I had a game and the game said player 1 gets a point when the coins end up being different, then I would circle the 2 out of 4 outcomes where each coin is different, and player 2 gets the points otherwise, and this would be a fair game because player 2 has a half a chance of winning and player 1 has a half a chance of winning. So for those of you who've chosen the coin toss project, you will add a third coin here, and for each of these 4 outcomes, remember for the third coin there would be 2 outcomes, heads or tails, heads or tails. You make a list like this and you analyze the game that's given. And then today we're doing the first lesson of 2 that are on probability, and then you'd be able to finish the rest of that project. Those who are doing rotations in sports, you can get going on it now. You've had everything you need mathematically to do that project. So today it's all about probability and about when two events do not happen at the same time, cannot happen at the same time, and you want to know the probability that one or the other of the events occurs. It's the sum, remember that's the answer when you add, of the probabilities of the two events. So that's a mouthful, so let's just look at something real so this makes sense to you. So let's say that out of the 190 students in the middle school at AIS, 23 were in band and 12 are in choir. And band and choir at the same time, so no student is in both band and choir. And the name for that, when there's no one in each of the other groups, like no one in band is in choir and no one in choir is in band, if you're in band, you're excluded from being in choir because they're at the same time. And if you're in choir, you're excluded from being in band. That means you cannot be in both. When that's happened, that's called mutually exclusive events because both of them cannot be in each other's. So if I'm in band, I can't be in choir, and if I'm in choir, I can't be in band. And that's the probabilities of what we studied today. So if we have mutually exclusive events, then what we do is find the probability of each, and we just add them. And that's the probability that out of the entire class, if I'm going to choose a student at random from the entire middle school, what's the probability that a student will be in band or choir? So I've got 23 out of 190 in band and 12 out of 190 in choir. So remember, probability is always a number from 0 to 1, and it comes from the fraction, the favorable outcomes out of the total possible outcomes. So 12 190ths, 12 are our favorable outcomes for choir out of 190 total students, and 23 are our favorable outcomes for band. So if I want to know, if I put all 190 of the middle school's names in a hat, and I was going to draw a name from the hat, and I want to know what's the probability that one of the students is in band or choir, I have to add these two probabilities, and they've got the same denominator, so you just add the 23 and 12, and we get 35 190ths. Now just to make sure you understand this and we relate to the type of Venn diagram it is, if no student in band is in choir and no student in choir is in band, that is a disjoint Venn diagram. So here's band, here's choir, there's no overlap. And that's why I can just simply add the probabilities and get 35 190ths. And then remember, you have to always simplify this to lowest terms. So we divide each of them by 5 and we get 7/38. So that means that if I drew a name at random from the middle school, the probability that the student would be in band or choir is 7/38. A little more than a fifth. All right, then you tried one with your table group. If there's 180 students who attend Dubai International Middle School, 45 of them are on the basketball team and 55 are on the school's soccer team. And those seasons at that school happen at the same time, so you cannot play both sports. So if a student was chosen at random, you had to figure out what's the probability that the student is either on the basketball team or the soccer team. And you guys did this in your table groups, And this is what you did. You added 45 180ths and 55 180ths, and we got 100 180ths. Most of you thought, well, it's easiest just to divide these both by 10, and then I get 10/18, and I divide them both by 2, and I get 5/9, which that means that a little bit more than half of the entire middle school plays basketball or soccer, which is a lot of kids, which is great. And the second half of this lesson we'll do next class, and that's going to deal with probabilities when you have an overlap. Remember from the Venn diagrams, we had an overlap and we had to do some subtraction to find the numbers? Okay, that's coming next. All right, so you had a quiz in class today. Check the online grade book. Your scores will be up there shortly, and by the time you see this screencast, they'll be there. And for homework, do these 5 problems on those pages, and please don't do any more because we didn't finish the lesson. And that's it.